Hey there, pioneers. Welcome to the Reflections Cast, designed to immerse you in teachings about goal setting, dream building, and all things dynamic living. Join us for inspiring conversations as we unwrap these topics and offer insights for seeking positive change in your life. Here's Season 2, Episode 10, The Breakdown of Goal Setting. All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. My name is Steve.
And I am Melody.
And this is it. This is the summary, the full encapsulation, the recap of this 9-month series that we've been going over with Skip. This incredible journey of breaking down so many different aspects of this entire process of goal setting. I am so excited to finally be here with you all and ready to get through this pretty gargantuan chunk of notes that we have sitting before us, right, Melody?
It is very impressive. We have a very impressive outline for this episode. I hope you guys are ready.
I was gathering all of the audio together that has been edited and cleaned up and is ready to put on Pioneer Circle for everyone. And it came out to roughly 6 hours of audio that over this last year, we've been breaking down chunk by chunk by chunk. And honestly, looking back, it's a really satisfying way to go over this talk because there's just so much when you see it written down in this super short, truncated notes format. It just leaves out so much. So I'm really glad that we've had this process to really sink our teeth into all of these different aspects of goal setting. But before we get started, just wanted to thank you guys all for coming along with us and going through this journey. If you are new to the podcast, if this is your first episode, rewind a bit. Maybe go check out episode 2 of season 1, because that is really where this whole journey started. It wasn't in episode 1. Episode 1 was more of our introduction to the podcast. But episode 2 is when we began this lesson from Skip, recorded during a volunteer week where he really had time to sink his teeth into this topic and had the foresight to record it for us so that we could break it down here for y'all. So, Melody, are you ready to get started on this?
I'm ready. I think this is going to be a really fun episode as we kind of look back on everything that we've learned over the last 9 months. And honestly, like you said, I'm just so excited because we have so much more of Dad's teachings, and to be able to go through them in this type of a format and just learn in the long, slow, deep sort of way that we've been doing is super, super exciting. So I hope you guys are ready for a lot more content. But before we move on to our next learnings, I'm excited to go back and review all of this once more.
I mean, the reason why we picked this topic, we really didn't. I was aware of its length. I really didn't think about how long it would take for us to get through it all.
Right.
But it was such a great topic to delve into, specifically at this time, this year, these past couple years of developing the Pioneer Circle and everything with Circle A Summit, and just wanting to really grow in ways that are just way outside of comfort zones for us and for a lot of people in connection with all of this stuff. So I think it was the right choice. And man, I can't wait to do more series topics that delve into all the other aspects of dynamic living and the stuff that Dad loves to talk about. But with that, are you ready to get into it, Melody?
Let's do it.
Did I already ask you that? All right, here we go. So we started the series off with listening to one of the great highlights of the talk, which is the series thesis. And that goes, a goal is a planned conflict with the status quo. In order to reach a goal, then, according to this definition, we must do something new, leaving the familiar, easy terrain of our comfort zones and exploring new frontiers. This is probably the main reason why so many people don't set them. Goals push us towards new behaviors. They push us towards behaviors that sometimes we'd rather not have to worry about. And the process is always painful. But when properly understood, however, the alternative form of living without goals is far more painful, far less productive, and infinitely less satisfying. If we do not define and follow our dreams and our goals, we are destined to follow the one who has followed his. A goal, then, is a dream with a time and accountability guidelines. And that's the way that Skip started off the series. And then he plunged into a whole nother topic. So Melody, you want to take it from there?
Yep. Well, I love that. I love that you read it again. And that was very much sounds like a thesis of Dad's. A lengthy and wise thesis that will set you up for 9 months of study. So we did it. So yeah, we'll jump into the next piece. So the first big chunk that we studied in this series was to gain the knowledge of the process. So he encouraged us to learn from our home, our school, our church, from seminars, from observing successful people, from business trainings that we have, to really gain the knowledge of the process of goal setting, and then to open our mind to that process and embrace the change that it brings. And Dad was certainly a proponent about the supreme importance of really learning this material in a way that we could apply it. And I feel like he's probably the best resource that any of us have to gain the knowledge. So I feel like that's exactly what we've been doing. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. In my adult life, I'm tickled listening back to some of Dad's talks, because he always does this where his first point is, hey, get ready to listen.
Yep.
And I always think like, no, I'm here with my notes. I'm ready to listen. I came to the seminar. What? Why is that your first point? But it's so important in this process of like, yeah, no, you really have to open yourself up to all of this, because it's a lot.
Yep.
And it comes as a package. And so you kind of have to take it all in all at once. So I'm really glad that he took the time to not only brace us for this talk, but then takes so much time to delve into it.
Yep.
So the next big chunk that he talked on, Roman numeral number 2, was understanding the workings of the process. And point A in that was develop belief and internalize the principles of goal setting. Letter B was understand why people don't set goals. And those 7 reasons that he gave why people don't set goals are the fear of change. Leaving the comfort zone is painful, but it's necessary. Point number 2, the conditioning process, habitual patterns, and a lack of early training. It just stops people from wanting to even try. And then number 3, they get caught in the sit back and watch it happen stage of life, and they just resist taking action. And then number 4, habitually setting goals that are way too high, avoiding effort by setting unrealistic goals. Even if it's not intentional, it just makes it that much harder to get started. And then number 5 was the fear of losing or a fear of failure. And they want to avoid that criticism and ridicule. Number 6 was a fear of success, doubting their ability to handle all that new responsibility that accomplishing these goals might bring on. And then number 7 was not knowing what they really want, not having a clear idea, not having a direction, not really being specific. And that is something Dad was not a fan of. Be specific with what it is you're doing. So that was that section of Roman numeral number 2.
Yep. I think it's really interesting. Like if you had been sitting in this seminar and hearing it all at once, and you get point number 1, which is get ready to listen. And everybody's like, yeah. But I kind of like know what goal setting is. And then he starts into point number 2 and to understand why people don't set goals. And like, I'm confident everyone hearing that is like, oh, well, that's me and that's me and that's me. And like, okay, maybe I do have a thing or two to learn or to be reminded about goal setting. So I love that Dad did that too, because he'd get you ready and then he would just like hit you with like such a big load of wisdom that you're just kind of blown away. So good. Right. And I think, all of those reasons why people don't set goals, he makes such a clear invitation for us to choose to do it differently. So it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So then we went to Roman numeral number 3, which was begin the application of the process. And this had several points to it. So I'll just go through the letters that we have listed in this outline here. So letter A was crystallize your thinking. Decide what you really want with a burning desire. Obviously, we learned a lot about that from Dad over the years. Letter B, define it clearly and specifically. So we're describing our goals vividly in the present tense. Letter C, this one will sound familiar too. Write it down. A goal unwritten is merely a wish, according to Skip Ross. Then letter D, develop a plan for accomplishing. And in that plan, he reminded us, we first identify and list potential obstacles and roadblocks so that we can be prepared for challenges. Then we prioritize potential solutions and we become proactive in overcoming those challenges. We focus on what we can do to overcome challenges we might face. And then next, we develop a dogged determination to follow through, and we persist despite setbacks we may face. So that's all under letter D. Then letter E was review the rewards for attainment. So teaching us to link our goals to our deepest needs and our deepest values so that we can be reminded of why we're really working towards the things we're working towards. Then letter F was to set the deadline, establish a clear timeline for achievement. That's super important. Letter G was reaffirm goals daily. So again, a very common theme in Dad's teaching to read our goals every morning and every night and to rewrite them often. Then letter H was to set checkpoints, keep track, measure it, and keep it alive. So we are essentially monitoring our progress so that we can sustain that momentum as we grow. Then letter I was to surround ourselves with motivators that help us to visualize the goal and enhance the experience. So just helping us to remember to bring our senses in, to bring our community in, to bring our imagination in so that we can enjoy the experience and just be fully immersed into it. And then letter J was to use positive affirmations and associations to immerse ourselves in supporting, uplifting influences. So that was the teaching that came under, the first chunk of the teaching that came under beginning the application of the process. And then, Stephen, I'll pass it over to you to keep going with that application.
All right. Well, I will just say on your section, I love that part. I mean, it feels like the meat and potatoes section of this talk. And it felt so much like all of the stuff that he touches on in dynamic living fleshed out in such a more vibrant way. And I really liked that aspect of the talk. But then he did move on to something that we both commented on. It's not his normal style to touch on, but that's the 6 types of goals. He talks about the tangible goals. These are material things that you can experience with your senses. You know that you've accomplished it, right? Or that you know that you have it. But then he also talks about these intangible goals, these goals like internal growth, character development, and making a difference in your life. Not necessarily something you can measure, but you know when it's there. And then number 3, he talks about short range goals. These are 90 to 120 day targeted goals that provide that quick satisfaction, that quick reminder to stay in the game, to keep pushing towards those bigger goals. The next one is the intermediate range goals. Those would be those significant milestones that you would hit over weeks or months, and then you hit the long range goals. These are those major life goals that can span months or years to accomplish. And all of these things are umbrellaed by this main idea of his construction of goals, which is the ultimate goal. What is your life purpose? And what legacy will you leave that will outlast you? It's a powerful set of requirements in terms of how to set up your goals and why you want to do certain types of goals and why you don't just want to go for only long range goals. It's a great section of the talk as well. But he does get into even so much more than that in the next section, which I will throw back to you, Melody.
All right. Yeah, I really did love, his breakdown of those 6 types of goals, because it just felt like he was taking so much more time and care to explain all of these different ways to go about goal setting that he just never got time to do in a dynamic living seminar. So it was super cool to hear. But then he went on to guidelines for effective goal setting, which may sound similar to the application process, but these were just a little bit more specific. And, Dad liked to use the word guidelines, where many people might use the word rules. And he liked to do that for a lot of reasons, mostly because words are super important to him. And he wasn't really interested in giving anyone rules for very many things. But essentially, if you look at them that way, you can see what he meant by guidelines, just to help us be the most effective with our time and our effort. So we got 12 guidelines for effective goal setting. So number 1, if it's not in writing, it's not a goal. A goal unwritten is merely a wish. He doesn't beat around the bush about that. He's pretty clear about it. He's always been pretty clear about it, and he's pretty right about it. So I love that he reminds us of that guideline. Number 2, goals must be your own personal goals. Set goals that resonate with your desires, meaning you can't necessarily set goals for your family or for your work team unless everyone's coming into that process and being a part of that goal. But the goals that we're setting on our own are our personal goals. The number 3, goals must be stated positively. Articulate what you want, not what you are avoiding. He was very firm on that, taught it consistently throughout his life, just so aware of how we're programming our brains with our words. Then number 4, goals must be stated in the present tense. Describe them as your current reality. And again, that just helps our brains imagine and visualize our goals really happening in our current life. Then number 5, the power of well-defined goals cannot be overemphasized. Be clear and specific. Again, a classic Skip Ross teaching expanded on in this series. Very cool. Then number 6, goals must be challenging. So stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone. Number 7, goals must be realistic. So set goals that are ambitious but achievable and touched by reality. And I love those two because they're essentially juxtaposed, contrasting each other, which is super, super awesome and super helpful for us to not go too far one way or the other. Then number 8, goals must be set and seen from inside the dream. Visualize the experience vividly. Number 9, goals must be appreciated before fulfillment. So we cultivate that gratitude in advance and we enjoy and appreciate the process, each piece of the process. The number 10, goals must be emotionally driven and benefits bathed. So we tap into our deep whys. We tap into our ultimate goal. We tap into our purpose in life so that we can draw from that well of emotion and purpose. Then number 11, goals must be non-comparative. So we focus on personal excellence, not competition. Another very important Skip Ross teaching that we see again and again throughout so many of the different pieces of what he teaches. And goal setting is certainly one of those very important places that we not compare with others. And then number 12 is to maintain a balance between long-term and short-term goals. So we want to have milestones along the way. And then we also want to have that grand vision that's way out on the horizon that we're working towards for a lifetime. So those are our 12 guidelines for goal setting.
Awesome. I love that he did specify them as guidelines, and that they really did kind of give a good framework for how to pursue all of the things that he had been talking about in the previous sections. And then he moves on to Roman numeral number 4, persist through the challenges of the process. Now, at this point, he was getting a little rushed, so he didn't have time to really break it down. But he did kind of specify this earlier on when he was talking about dogged determination. And he just says that there's a number of roadblocks that are going to get in front of you on this process. And you just have to be determined to push through this process to get you to where you want to go. And then there's also going to be a bunch of encouragers that can help you in getting through those roadblocks. So identify them, have them be a part of your process. And he does go into that earlier in the talk, which is why I think he kind of runs through it at the end. And then he delves a little bit more into the next final point, which is Roman numeral number 5, celebrate the victory of the process. And that's all about fulfillment that comes from celebrating these achievements of your goals. This entire process, it's not just getting to the goal. It's that process of taking those steps. This whole thing is something to celebrate and be excited about, and know that it is leading to a better you, that it's leading to the things that you want for your life. And it is something to be perpetually enthused by. And he does say that there are 12 separate points related to that that he was not able to get into. But he did leave us with a pretty awesome send-off, a pretty awesome poem. Melody, would you like to remind us of that a little?
I would. I feel like if he would have done those 12 more points, it would have been another solid 3 to 4 months.
Seriously.
But I'm sad we don't have them, but I'm grateful for everything we do have. And what a journey. So he ends it with this quote, which we did research, and it is by Anonymous, his favorite quote giver. So we'll read this one because it's beautiful. It's worth reading again. It says, if there were ever a time to dare, to make a difference, to embark on something worth doing, it is now. Not for any grand cause necessarily, but for something that tugs at your heart, something that is your aspiration, something that is your dream. You owe it to yourself to make your days here count. Have fun. Dig deep. Know that things worth doing seldom come easy. So persist. You can do great things when you have an idea, determination, and the right tools. Let your instincts, your intellect, and your heart guide you. And just trust. Believe in the incredible power humankind possesses to do something that makes a difference. To work hard, to laugh, to hope. There is only one you, and you will pass this way only once. Do it right and dream big.
Awesome. Yeah, I know it says anonymous, but I would have definitely said it could easily have been written by Dad.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, there it is, everyone. Our small encapsulation of what was a tremendously powerful and meaningful and hopefully constructive talk for all of you listening that will be available. We're going to make it available to Pioneer Circle in its entirety. So if you enjoyed listening to these small sections, our debriefing and dissection and questions, check out Pioneer Circle and get access to this talk, because it is 6 hours of just, a fire hose of wisdom. So it's worth it. And with that, we thought it'd be fun to just kind of delve into what were some of our favorite takeaways, our top 3 takeaways from the talk. Melody, do you want me to start with some of mine? Would you like to start with some of yours? How do you want to do this?
Yeah. How about you start and then we can maybe go back and forth. So you do one, I'll do one. But I'm wondering, like, are we like rating these? Are we starting with our like number 3 top takeaway and then number 2 and then number 1? Or are these just the 3 like big things that we're taking away from the series?
I think with mine, I did structure them in terms of like ones that are most meaningful. I say for the number 3, so it builds up, but
okay. Yep.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be ranked.
Okay. Well, I have mine kind of building up too. So we'll just go with that and see. And we haven't compared notes. So, if we have any that match, that'll be okay too.
Yeah. So my number 1 is just in looking at this talk as a whole, a key takeaway that I feel is, and I know he said this multiple times, but it's that this process of goal setting will transform you. And are you ready for that? Are you ready to open your mind to this process? Are you ready to learn the skills and to master them? And are you ready for what that means, how that will change you and change your life? I think on the very first episode, he says, change your thinking and you change your life. And so that was one takeaway that I feel is so important when talking about this whole process, is that it's not just like, oh, I really want a new car, so I'm going to set a goal and I'm going to get that extra special car that I was really hoping for. I mean, that's a great goal, and it's something that really can drive you, because it actually does. But on top of that, it's something that changes your life in a way. But there's so much more to this topic and this talk in terms of yourself and what it will do to you in terms of that ultimate goal and realizing who you are and who you can be. And just, are you ready for that? Are you ready for that transformation? So that was my number 1.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge piece of everything that he's teaching, and just the reality that this is bigger than just things that you will accomplish in your life. It's going to transform you as a person into becoming more of the person you're created to be. And like, that's just amazing and wonderful that it's bigger than just a list of things to check off an achievement list. So I love that. So my first one on my list actually goes all the very way back to the beginning. It's probably the very first thing he said, which is the quote, "A goal is a planned conflict with the status quo." And I felt like I carried that perspective with me throughout these whole 9 months of learning all of this again, because Dad didn't talk a lot in terms not that conflict is a negative term necessarily, but it could have a negative connotation. And so when he did use words that were a little more provocative like that, it was always very intentional, and it was always very impactful, especially to me, because I didn't hear him talk like that a lot. So to say, like, he's encouraging us to plan a conflict is a big invitation. And so being able to kind of look at all of the teaching through that lens of a planned conflict with the status quo was really cool. And, I think he said it in that episode as well, something that he said all the time, which is that change is always painful. And I remember as a kid and as a young person hearing that idea, change is always painful, change is always painful. Like, I didn't always love it. And I didn't always, I guess I agreed with it, because I'm not, I think some people like new things and I don't. I would prefer to never get an updated phone or computer. I would just be very happy to have a device that would work forever and I would never have to change. So like, I am one of those people. But also, like, when you're thinking about growth, personal growth or growth towards achievements, I didn't love the reality that he was right about that there was always pain involved in the process. Not that it was completely a painful process. He was also very clear there was good in the process, but just his acknowledgement of the pain of growth and of the conflict with the status quo. I felt like it was always helpful to me to see it that way, so that when I felt that pain, I could normalize it as, yep, this is part of the process and it's worth it and it's good. And, I think I can look back at all of the goals I've achieved in my life that I'm super proud of and remember, yep, I did make a conflict with what would have been easy. And yep, I did pay a price. And yep, there were painful parts, but I'm so glad I did. And so, just being able to look at all of this through that lens was really helpful and good and inspiring.
Yeah, I love that. I love that whole takeaway. And my number 2, it's that, you have to commit to these goals, and you have to do it in for Dad, it was in a very specific, intentional way of writing it down in these specific, challenging, yet realistic, emotional, and compelling, the correct tense, stating it positively, making it vivid, and just knowing you have to see it from every angle, from inside the dream. You have to live it. You have to want it. You have to develop that dogged determination. This framework that he observed about goal setting is just such a cool thing to explore and to study and to implement. And I'm just really glad that we have this framework to work off of and talk about. It's a takeaway that, obviously I use when I am trying to develop my goals. But they are hard, right? Just developing that dogged determination in general is hard. Especially when you feel like, well, I don't think that's going to work out, but you have to see through those obstacles, those roadblocks, and surround yourself with those things that can get you in that right headspace so you can stick with it. So that's my second takeaway. It's kind of a mishmash of ideas, but it's really just taking that meat and potatoes part and squishing it into one thing.
No, I love it. I think the framework itself is a really important takeaway of the teaching as a whole, because it is something that can be boiled down to, the bullet points that we just went through. And so to be able to take that and say, here's an entire framework to simply follow and experience life transforming success with goal setting is awesome. So I think the framework itself is a huge takeaway. And even though we went into so many nuances within the framework, I think that just having it holistically is awesome. So I love that. My second biggest takeaway was a kind of focusing in on one of the pieces that he talked about regarding controlling our environment. I think everything he says is important, and I think everything he says is wise. And I guess I do think that this is maybe a little bit more important. And I think maybe he thought that this was a little bit more important too. If we're going to pick the pieces that will have the most impact on who we become and how we are able to move forward with our goals, I think that being aware of our environment and choosing to curate it is so essential. And it's certainly something that he taught and lived and modeled, and that I've been able to take away from him. But in terms of, creating a peer group that brings us up to a place of high standards and high hope and high energy and high achievement and high standards, I think is so essential. Surrounding ourselves with the content that's going to keep us in a space of growth and in a space of learning and in a space of hope, as far as books and audios and just everything that we allow into our mental space is so important. He talked about finding a coach or a counselor to help us work through these things. That's another thing we can do to curate and control our environment, and just making use of positive peer pressure and things of that nature. And then kind of in addition to that, the habits that he talked about building as a part of this, including the reading it every morning and every night, including the dogged determination, including just the rituals that we build into our routines so that we create an environment for a flourishing. It just all feels so essential to me. And I honestly don't know how to successfully achieve goals without working really hard at this. I'm sure people do. And I'm not saying I couldn't, but I don't think I know how, because this feels so important to me. It feels more important to me even than achieving the goals, because if I'm in an environment like this, then I'm still transforming. I'm still becoming the person that I want to become. And the timeline of the goals just feels less important to me than becoming this person that I am, curating to become. So I think that's super important. And I think that we humans, especially in this current cultural moment, are so unaware of our formation. And, in the church circles that I come from, we talk a lot about spiritual formation and what are habits and practices and environments that help us become more like Jesus. And it's very interesting because a lot of people don't automatically realize that we must curate our formation, because it's not a matter of are we being formed or are we not being formed? The reality is that we are being formed. But if we're not very deliberate about what we're being formed to look like, we're just being formed to be consumers and producers that are only valued for what we produce and what we consume. And we're numbed into apathy and despair and depression. And that's how we're being formed, unless we are very deliberate to choose something else. And so I think there was so much of that teaching kind of woven throughout this whole study, but there were some specific weeks that he was really specific about controlling the environment. And to me, that was a super, super essential piece and takeaway.
I love that. Thank you for including that, because I think that the way that you articulate your takeaways on this can be really helpful for people. There's a lot to take in, and how are we supposed to kind of digest this at the end? And I think that was a great key point to encapsulate. So thank you for that. My final one is, I think, a simple one, and yet, the most important, possibly, at least for me, the most important point of the talk, which is that this goal setting process is not some one and done thing. It's a lifelong journey of growth that starts with deciding what that ultimate purpose, that ultimate goal is. And once you have that as your keystone for all of your other ambitions and goals and efforts, and, even down to your habits, your daily routines, how that process can transform you into the person that you want to be. So the takeaway is that it's this journey, starts with the ultimate goal, but it's a process full of celebration, and it's a process full of victories, and it's a process that, might also be full of challenges and hardships and difficulties, but how many more rewards and gratitude and happiness can you look forward to through this series of becoming? So I love that he had the time to really delve into that idea and kind of build off of what is so clearly a part of dynamic living, and yet I think was very unique to this talk as well. So I really like that point. I don't have a whole lot more to say on it other than I really like it, but I think that it's something that stood out to me as my key takeaway from this talk.
Well, our first couple points did not match up, but it's not surprising to me that our final one did, because I completely agree with you. I do think that his teaching on the ultimate goal is the most important part of this whole series. And I think that the way he was able to unpack it was just very beautiful and very important, because, if all we're doing is checking stuff off a checklist or racking up a list of accomplishments, then I think we are just becoming those consumers and producers who are valued by what we produce. And that was never what Dad taught. That was never what he believed. As huge of a proponent as he was for achievement and becoming the best versions of ourselves, he was so much more a proponent of, living a life of significance and meaning and ultimate purpose and ultimate worth and value. And so I feel like his teaching on that is the essential keystone for all of this, because any of us can make a list of stuff we want to do, but, is that adding to our purpose on this earth? Is that bringing us closer to our ultimate goal? And I think, I said this, I'm sure a time or two before in these 9 months, but I've reached the age where if it's not something that's directly contributing to what I view as my ultimate goal, then I don't want to do it. I don't have time to do it. It's not that I can't. I feel like if I can run a marathon, I can probably do anything that I decide I want to do, but I don't have time to do everything. So what am I going to do that is adding to the person I feel called to become, that is moving me towards that ultimate goal? And I think one of the things that stood out to me most in his teaching on that particular topic was the idea of integrity, which I know was super, super important to him. It's super important to me. And essentially, integrity is the quality or condition of being complete or whole. Or Dad used to say it's being the same on the outside as you are on the inside. And so, I want my goals to be a representation of my integrity, the person that I am on the inside, the person that I'm becoming. I want my goals to reflect that. And I don't need superfluous random accomplishments to distract me from working towards wholeness. So, like you said, I don't know that there's a lot more to say that's any better than Dad said it, but I do think that was the most important part of this series. And I think that, being able to build all of our understanding about goal setting on the foundation of that is where we really start, is so essential. So I'm so grateful he had the time to unpack it and to teach it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that is our review of those top 3 takeaways. I hope you all enjoyed this incredible process with us, this awesome journey. And we just wanted to take a minute to connect with you guys and let you know of all of the things that we have planned in the future to stay connected. We've got some incredible resources coming down the pipeline and things that are already available. We've got some awesome things that we have planned for the podcast coming up. And we've got an incredible opportunity that I definitely want to make sure that you guys hear from Melody about, because it is something that, well, I'm super excited about. Smith, my son, is super excited about. And I think there's a lot of other people around the Circle A community that are very excited about as well. To get into that, I think I'll throw it over to Melody to let you guys know what it is that we have planned for you with our resources and this very fun thing that's coming up.
We do. We have a lot going on, a lot planned. And our desire really is to be a resource for you, for families, for individuals who are working on their personal growth, for just the whole community of Circle A, of Skip Ross. So we want to be a resource, and we're excited about all the different pieces of resourcing that are starting to come together. So the first kind of layer of our resourcing is just our social media. And we're working to curate our social media to be a place where we can kind of regain some language for the pieces of Skip's teaching that are so essential, as well as kind of translating some of that teaching for the next generation. So we would love for you to follow our Facebook and our Instagram, Pioneer Circle. You can follow us there, and you'll be able to take advantage of all the resourcing that we're doing there. Then kind of our next layer is a book that is coming out on April 18th. And it's a book I've written called The Forest Before the Field, a guide for pioneers. And I'm super excited about it. It is a book that's essentially written to our rising generation. So our middle school students, our high school students, but it's really a book for anybody. And I would love for you to be a part of getting this book and reading some of the stories and teaching that have kind of been translated from Dad's generation to the next generation that's coming. So that book is going to be available again on April 18th. And we'll be telling you more about that soon. Then kind of after the social media and the book, then we've got the Pioneer Circle, which we've been telling you guys about for a while. It's still available. We are still working on building up to 100 families and beyond in the Pioneer Circle. And it's just a fantastic resource of accountability, of inspiration and encouragement. We have got a goal setting app, which is really awesome, especially for our middle school and high school students to be able to use to kind of track their goals along with this framework that we've learned from this series. We've also got monthly coaching calls, which have been so awesome to get both our young people together every month and then our adults together every month and discuss the things that we are learning from the daily videos. So definitely check out Pioneer Circle. You can go to pioneercircle.org to check out that resource. And then the big one, the best one, of course, is our Circle A Summit, which is coming up in Michigan this summer, June 1st through the 5th. It's a family camp format, very similar to what we did last year. And we do have space for a few more families, only a few more families. So if you are interested in joining us for the Circle A Summit, go ahead to circleacamp.com and get your registration in, because we are planning to pack it out. It's going to be an amazing few days together of fun and learning and rest and just all kinds of delving into some of the topics that we've been learning in the Pioneer Circle this last year. So again, that's pioneercircle.org for the coaching platform, and then circleacamp.com for our summit. And we would love to have you be a part of any or all of these things as we continue to grow our resources for you guys, and continue the podcast as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would just reiterate, it doesn't matter if you are a longtime veteran of this kind of material, or you are just starting out on your goal setting journey. If you want to have an experience that will give you that kick in the pants to get committed to your goals, Circle A is the place to do it. So if you want to find a place to learn how to commit to something, check out Circle A Summit, because it's going to be a lot of fun. And then speaking of things that we've got going on, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing with the podcast over the summer. Obviously, because of all these things that we're doing with the book launch, Circle A, our schedules are always pretty tight on the summer anyway. So we're going to take the podcast in a little different direction during the summertime. We're going to be doing some one-off episodes where we might be delving into just a small talk by Skip, or there's a really awesome new book that's coming out by this crazy good young author. She's really making waves in the world right now. But Melody Farrell will be on the podcast to talk about this book in depth. And I hear it's in an episode coming up very soon. So look forward to that great interview. But along with that interview, we're going to have other interviews over the summer from people that we might not get to be in the presence of all that often. And so we're going to take advantage of our time at the Circle A Summit to get to sit down with some of them and really delve into some of these topics as well and talk about their experience with Circle A or with Skip or dynamic living and goal setting and all of the amazing topics that can spawn off of those talking points. So look forward to that. And then after summer, we're going to launch into a brand new season 3 of the Reflections Cast. So I hope you guys really felt motivated, that you felt empowered over this long journey with us. I don't know if we've got too many more lessons of Skip that are this length, other than maybe just going straight into dynamic living. But I hope that it's given you something that you can come back to over and over again, that this is not something that you've listened to and you're done with, because Skip was not that way. I will tell you, this was not the first time he gave that talk. It probably wasn't the last time he gave that talk. And whenever he gives any talk, he's never talking to the people. He's never educating the people. He is revisiting the content for himself, because he always has something new to learn about the content that he's putting out there into the world. It's stuff that he believes in and committed his life to. So I hope that you take the time to revisit this series. We'll keep it up on our YouTube channel and our Spotify and all of our podcast platforms out there. But take this as a call to action, an opportunity. Set your goals now. Download that app with Pioneer Circle and get your goals down. And maybe that goal is, hey, I'm going to Circle A camp this year, because you're invited. So come along, get your goals done. And I hope you rejoin us for season 3 after the summer fun is over. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this journey with the Reflections Cast.
And remember that your support means everything.
So if you enjoyed this cast and this episode, don't forget, hit that like button if you see it on your screen or on your phone. Write us a review or just leave us a message either by email or on voice if you can figure it out.
And please share this episode with friends or family or anyone that you can think of that might benefit from these discussions and ideas.
We believe in you, and we are committed to helping you thrive on your journey of discovering all you were created to be.
Until next time, keep reflecting,
keep growing, and
pass it on.